All right, here's the bigger thing with the Missoula thing, because they make the finals last year, and it's almost a year too early, in the sense that, wow, I thought this was going to be a year. I didn't realize it was going to be this year we made the finals. I remember comparing it to the 1996 Patriots, which had this really talented team that felt like it was a year away, and all of a sudden they're in the Super Bowl. And then you assume, oh, we'll be back. And, the next year, that Pats team, they lose in I think the first round, and then it quickly fell apart. I'm not saying that's going to happen with the Celtics team, but there is a title window piece to this where last year it felt like they were going to steal the title, right? Like because of Middleton's situation, and it felt like Milwaukee was headed for back-to-back. They somehow get by Milwaukee. Then they survive this incredible Miami collapse where they're up, 14 with 3.5 minutes left to almost lose the game. It comes out of Jimmy Butler 3. And then against the Warriors, it felt like after game one, oh my God, we actually could steal the title here. And then Curry became Curry. They lose in 6, but it's like, all right, this is good. Well, who's better than the Celtics this upcoming year? Nobody's better. There's teams that are as good. And then the season goes along, and you're like, whoa, the West is a mess, right? Milwaukee, something seems a little off with them. Philly looks okay, but the Celtics have the most talent. And Milwaukee loses in round 1. And you think, well, the season fucking parted. They're going to play the winner of the Heat and the Knicks. Just have to get by the Sixers team. and beat has a bad knee. Now they're down 3-2. And if it doesn't happen this year, I just think I don't know if you're going to have a better chance than you had last year and this year, especially with the salaries, with the way they were able to stack stuff, with the Jalen's only making $25 million. The CBA's changing. You might get stale with this nucleus, which we're going to talk about in a second, but I really worry about the title window, KOC. I think even though these guys are young, isn't that fair to be like, holy shit, are we missing our window completely here?
I mean, they're young, but they've been around a long time, and they've been through a lot of battles together. Like I think with Jaylen Brown, you're nearing the point that you're near the end of his, like you said, his second deal. If he doesn't get the All-NBA, he could very well test free agency in 2024. Horford's older, right? He's 36 years old. He's going to be 37 next year. And you got Brogdon over 30. He's getting picked apart on defense by Philadelphia. Marcus Smart, not the same right now this year on defense as he was last year when he won Defensive Player of the Year. He's fallen off a bit now, 30 years old. There's age for certain players, and there's free agency for others. I think for Boston, it's definitely a case where maybe this core's window is shutting. It's now just a matter of how do they pivot this core to extend it and into the future, because we don't know what's going to end up happening with a Jaylen Brown at this point, whether he leaves, wants to go, or just ends up inking a super max contract. And whether that is value or not remains to be seen. I love Jaylen Brown, but he's, the 15th to 20th best player in the league. He's not a top 5, top 10 guy. And when you're paying that enormous amount of money, that changes things under the new CBA, where if you enter into now with this new CBA, if you're a luxury tax team that's $7 million over, you have your typical penalties. But if you're $17.5 million over at this point, that the second apron that they installed, you can't trade picks 7 years into the future. You can't do sign and trades. You can't give up cash and deals, and so on and so forth. There's a long list of penalties. So
you're making me
for
feel
Boston,
worse.
that's where you enter. Yeah, that's true for Milwaukee. That's true for Golden State. It's true for potentially Boston. A lot of teams around the league where when the money gets that big, like it really limits your ability to use exceptions. Like you can't use your taxpayer mid-level exception to sign players. You're limited to minimums. It's restrictive. So I think for Boston, they're one of those teams in those buckets where it's at a point, it's a pivot point where it could extend, but maybe you have to take a slight step back as well.
Yeah, and I guess that then you're thinking, what's our core? What's our ceiling? Can Tatum be somebody who's a connector in the way that, somebody like Jokic is? What is he? Is he at that top level, or is he like right underneath? Like Russell and I were talking about that on Sunday. Is he just kind of right underneath that 1B level, not a 1A?
Might be. And
the Jalen piece, as we've discussed on this pod a few times, ever since the KD trade rumors, it's never felt totally right. There's been breadcrumbs dropped all over the place. Our guy Logan Murdoch wrote a great feature about him. There's been a couple weird interviews with him now, and even like during the series where he had that little bit of a dig about usually when the ball's in my hands, good things happen or whatever. Where he's talked about how he didn't have any shots in OT.
Offense wasn't the issue in that game, though. I didn't think.
I agree. No, if he had just stayed on Harden, at least it would have gone to the last shot in the overtime. I think Jalen's here, and I think they're going to pay him, and I think they're going to figure it out after they pay him a year later. I think short term, if this team gets bounced on Thursday, it might be the end for the Smart era, and Robert Williams would be the other one that I think has got a really tradable contract, who's been a huge disappointment, huge in the playoffs.
Not the same guy. He's not on defense.
My dad's claims he went to a game like 4 weeks ago when he hurt his knee again, and that they're not being honest about it. But he doesn't look even 50% as impactful, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not like the flying around crazy Robert Williams anymore. He still does these basic, he'll have this great defensive possession, and then he'll let up for a second. All of a sudden, his guy's shooting a wide open 15-footer, and you're like, what? Why did you stop playing? You just played hard for 8 seconds. And then the last 2 seconds, you gave up an open jumper. He's got a tradable contract. I wonder if they would try to trade those guys together. Smart has a hold over this team that we talked about on Sunday, where and I don't even know if it's totally his fault, but the ball always seems to find him in the biggest moments. It just does. Like you think about that Game 7 against Miami last year, just over and over again, he was taking the right shot. It was a wide open shot, but I also didn't want him to take it. And it might be one of those situations where he's underqualified for the role he thinks he should have, but he's kind of overqualified for the role that he probably should have. So my guess is that would be somebody this summer. But again, they could win on Thursday and they could win this weekend, and all of a sudden they'd be the favorites to make the finals again, right?
Sure. I mean, Doc Rivers has blown 3 3-1 leads in his coaching career. He's blown 3 3-2 leads in his coaching career, and 5 other 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1 leads. It's not like he's been up before and hasn't blown leads. It's just none of those have happened against a rookie head coach. For the Celtics here with Mazzulla, like we're talking about some of his weaknesses. It's also, like you said, Rob Williams is something definitely is up. Like he has explosive moments, but he's playing only the proof is in the minutes per game. He's playing 25, 30 minutes against the Warriors in the finals. He's ending last season playing 30 plus minutes per game over the last couple of months. He is not, he was hurt this year. He's playing 15, 20 minutes per game. They're clearly limiting him purposely. That's all the evidence you need compared to his usage
19 minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, like with the minutes, and never mind, like when you really watch the effort waver for him.